The following is a case study review on Palmer versus Merluzzi. Palmer was a high school football player, while Merluzzi is the school district superintendent. Dan Palmer was a high school student at Hunterdon High School. In a class for school, he was given an assignment to use the school radio station. During this assignment, there was not going to be any supervision at the radio station due to it being a weekend. Following Monday, after a custodial staff came through to clean the radio station, a marijuana pot and remnants of alcohol were found at the station. Dan Palmer came into a meeting with the head principal and the head football coach, because Dan was a part of the football team, and admitted to having both marijuana and alcohol on the school presence. From there, Dan Palmer and the following students were given a 10-day OSS suspension. This case was then seen by the superintendent's office, who then made their own decision to add on an extra 60-day extracurricular ban as well. The parents of Dan Palmer went to the superintendent's office to appeal this decision. The board upheld the superintendent's decision to instate the 60-day ban from extracurricular activities. The parents then took their case and argument onto the New Jersey State Commissioner of Education. Parents now argue whether or not Dan Palmer's due process was jeopardized. Along with the due process being jeopardized, Dan Palmer's parents argued that this suspension would hinder his academic performance post-high school due to him lacking the ability to be seen for college football scholarships. This argument came due to the fact that football season is a 3.5 to 4 month long sport. With Dan being suspended for 60 days, that would take him out of his sport for a 2-month period, which would be about half of his current season. The New Jersey State Commissioner of Education, Administrative Law Judge Bruce R. Campbell, used the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution over this case. The precedent case that was used in this case was Goss v. Lopez, which was a 1975 case. This case stated that due process was required in a 10-day scholastic suspension. This was completed through the meeting that was held between the head coach, the head principal, and Dan Palmer himself. From there, the commissioner had to move on and decide whether or not due process warranted the 60-day extracurricular suspension as well. It was then determined that the 60-day extracurricular suspension would not hinder Dan Palmer in an educational setting. The 60-day suspension was strictly extracurricular activities. This would be something that occurred after school hours. Dan Palmer would still be allowed, after his 10-day out-of-school suspension, to attend all of his classes and receive the full benefits of the educational system. It was because of this that Judge Bruce R. Campbell ruled that the 60-day extracurricular suspension should be upheld, because it did not go against Dan Palmer's due process. If the suspension would have included extra time out of school suspension, this would have fallen under the due process category. But since it was only extracurricular suspension, it did not fall under a due process rulement. Because the extracurricular suspension was for a voluntary sport, it is not covered under the 14th Amendment due to it not affecting the overall education of a student. This is Jessica Dukman's Week 4 case study review on Palmer versus Merluzzi, which is a case that involves due process and the extracurricular suspension of a high school football player.